The ocean whispered secrets no one dared to hear. In a quiet coastal town, where the gulls circled lazily above the cliffs and the scent of salt and seaweed filled the air, lived a young woman named Clarina. She was 22, with dark hair like chestnut waves and eyes that reflected both resilience and an unspoken sorrow. Though her family had little, there was an unshakable dignity in Clarina that money could never buy. Clarina's house was small and worn, the paint peeling slightly from years of harsh coastal winds. Her father had once been a fisherman, strong and steadfast, but age and illness had stolen much of his vitality. He now spent most of his days sitting by the window, staring at the sea, lost in memories of better times. Her mother worked tirelessly as a seamstress, her hands raw and blistered from long hours at the needle, sewing garments that often earned barely enough to cover a single day's meal. Clarina had grown up learning to shoulder responsibility early. She became the anchor of the household. Every morning she walked through the winding streets to clean the small homes of neighbors, offering a helping hand or a comforting smile wherever she went. Evenings were spent at the local library, arranging books and guiding young children in the joy of reading. Books were her escape, each page a doorway to worlds she could only dream of visiting. They were her companions, her teachers, her friends. One late afternoon, sunlight poured through the tall windows of the library, casting golden streaks across the dust motes in the air. Clarina was shelving a row of old books when she noticed a man standing near the entrance. He was tall, his posture reserved but not unapproachable. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and there was a tired gentleness in his eyes. This was Rowan. He was from the city, from a family wealthy enough to own properties across the country, influential enough to make decisions that affected the lives of many. Yet in his gaze, there was something Clarina recognized immediately. A quiet loneliness, the sort that comes from being expected to live a life planned by someone else, from being loved only for appearances. Rowan began visiting the library daily. At first, he only borrowed books, careful and distant. But over time, he lingered, watching Clarina as she moved among the shelves with purpose and care. Small conversations followed, a comment on the beauty of an old illustration, a shared observation about the tide outside, a fleeting smile that hinted at something unspoken. Gradually, silence became their companion. They would sit by the library's window, looking out at the ocean, letting the waves speak for them. Sometimes words were exchanged, sometimes just smiles. Clarina felt a pull toward Rowan she couldn't explain, a deep sense of safety and understanding she had never felt before. One evening, as the sky melted into orange and lavender hues, Rowan finally spoke the words that had been lingering between them for weeks. "Clarina, you're the first person I don't feel the need to pretend with." Clarina smiled, her heart fluttering. "Maybe it's because I expect nothing from you." And in that moment, love quietly blossomed, gentle, tentative, but unmistakable. However, love, as they soon discovered, is never free of trials. When Rowan mentioned Clarina to his family, the room grew heavy with tension. his mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "She is not from our world," she said. His father's voice followed, sharp and cold. "Marriage is not about feelings. It is about position, alliances, legacy." For the first time in his life, Rowan raised his voice, shaking with anger and pain. "I am a human being, not a business transaction." But the power of wealth and expectation rarely bends to truth. At the same time, Clarina faced her own storm. Her father's health deteriorated rapidly. One evening, the doctor's words struck like a harsh winter wind. "The treatment is expensive. Without it, he doesn't have much time." Clarina felt the walls of her small world closing in. She sold anything she could, small heirlooms, furniture, and even some of the books she loved most, everything to secure her father's treatment. Rowan offered to help quietly, insistently. But Clarina refused, her pride refusing to let her accept his charity. "I don't want your love to turn into obligation," she said softly, though the ache in her chest told a different story. The first real crack appeared. Soon, Rowan's parents arranged his engagement with a woman chosen not for her heart but for her status, her wealth, her ability to uphold the family name. Rowan fought, but they delivered an ultimatum. Marry her or lose everything. At that precise moment, Clarina discovered she was pregnant. Fear, not joy, filled her heart. She wanted to tell Rowan, but she knew his world was already imploding. She stayed silent, carrying the weight of this new life alone. And then she heard it. Rowan's engagement was official. That night, she walked to the cliffs overlooking the ocean, letting the salty wind whip through her hair. She whispered to the waves, "Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go." She left the town without explanations, without goodbyes. She vanished into the city, a small apartment her new world, a quiet job her companion, and the child growing inside her the only constant she could trust. Years passed. Rowan married as expected. Wealth surrounded him, but happiness never did. Every night beside his new wife, he felt the absence of a name he could not utter. Clarina, meanwhile, built a life from fragments of dreams and necessity. She nurtured her son with truth and love, ensuring he never carried the shadows of regret or abandonment. "Some loves aren't meant to stay," she told him as he grew. "They come to make us stronger." And yet fate had not finished its work. 10 years later, at a literary event in a bustling city hall, destiny forced their eyes together. Time had etched lines and wisdom into their faces, but it could not erase the silent bond that had always connected them. Rowan's voice trembled. "Is he mine?" Clarina nodded. "Yes, but he is no longer waiting for you. He is my life now." Rowan broke down for the first time in years, understanding finally the unbearable truth that some choices, delayed even by a heartbeat, destroy lives quietly. They did not reunite. They did not undo the past. But they emerged changed, stronger, and wiser. Their love had arrived too late, yet it had left an indelible mark, a silent echo carried by the waves of the sea. The city was a constant hum, but Clarina had learned to find quiet corners within it. Her apartment was small, modest, but it held warmth and safety. Every morning, she woke before the sun, preparing breakfast for her son, Elias, a curious and bright-eyed boy who had inherited her chestnut hair and reflective eyes. Motherhood had changed Clarina in ways she never anticipated. She had learned patience she did not know she possessed, courage she did not know existed, and a deep, unshakable strength to protect the life she had created against a world that often seemed indifferent. Elias asked questions, endless, innocent, sometimes piercing. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy live with us?" Clarina's heart clenched, but she forced a smile. "Some people make choices we cannot change, sweetheart, but he still loves you in his own way, and we have each other." Even as she built a life filled with routine and small joys, the memory of Rowan lingered. It was not regret, it was something quieter, a bittersweet echo of what might have been. She had loved him deeply, too deeply perhaps, but life had demanded sacrifice. Rowan, meanwhile, was a shadow of the man Clarina had once known. Wealth surrounded him, but it could not fill the hollow left by lost love. Every achievement, every social event, every carefully curated success in the city felt hollow without Clarina's laughter, without the quiet moments by the sea that had once defined him. Rowan's marriage, expected and performed to satisfy family obligations, began to show cracks. His wife, elegant and poised, was kind, but there was no spark, no depth, no shared understanding. Rowan tried to convince himself that duty could substitute for desire, that honor could replace love. But at night, alone in his study, he would stare at the city skyline and imagine Clarina sitting across from him, her hair falling over her shoulders, her smile untouched by compromise. Years passed in parallel lives. Clarina worked part-time at a bookstore now, organizing literary events and introducing children to worlds far beyond their reach. Elias grew quickly, a thoughtful boy with an insatiable curiosity. Clarina worried constantly about money, about safety, about teaching him enough to face a world that could be both cruel and indifferent. Then, unexpectedly, fate intervened. A prestigious literary event was announced in the city, a gathering of authors, critics, and book lovers. Clarina had been invited to speak about her work, about creating stories for children that carried truths and morals without sugarcoating life's harshness. Rowan, coincidentally, was attending on behalf of his company, which had sponsored the event. The crowd was large, filled with voices, laughter, and the faint scent of expensive perfumes and colognes. Clarina stepped up to the podium, scanning the audience, unaware that Rowan's presence would make her pulse quicken in ways she had not felt for years. And then he was there. Time froze. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. The air seemed to thicken, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Rowan's hand trembled slightly as he held his drink, his heart pounding as he remembered every detail, every moment, every word they had exchanged years ago. After her speech, Clarina walked toward the refreshments table. Rowan approached cautiously. "Clarina?" His voice was low, unsteady. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to see you either," Clarina said, her tone even but her chest tight. They talked cautiously, sharing safe details, the city, the event, trivialities. But beneath their careful words flowed a current of unspoken emotions. Love, regret, longing, and the silent acknowledgement of what they had lost. Rowan finally asked, voice breaking, "Is he mine?" Clarina's eyes softened. "Yes, but he is no longer waiting for you. He is my life now." Rowan looked down, grief-stricken, understanding fully for the first time that some opportunities, once missed, never returned. But the story was far from over. Rowan's parents, discovering he had seen Clarina, were furious. His father demanded he attend a series of social events to distract him and solidify his marriage. Rowan, though obedient in outward appearances, began questioning everything. His life, his marriage, his purpose. And every decision seemed smaller, more hollow, in comparison to the life he had abandoned. Clarina, meanwhile, struggled to keep Elias unaware of the emotional tempest surrounding them. She had hoped their lives could remain insulated, peaceful. But the city was smaller than she thought. News traveled quickly. Rowan's reappearance stirred rumors, whispers, and judgments, some directed cruelly at her for past decisions. One evening, Clarina returned home to find a bouquet of lilies left at her doorstep. No note, just lilies. The gesture, simple and silent, stirred a mixture of fear, anger, and longing in her chest. She knew it was from Rowan. Her life, which had been carefully built with boundaries and resilience, suddenly felt vulnerable. She loved Elias fiercely and would never compromise his stability. But the memories, the connection, they were undeniable. Rowan, too, was changing. The guilt of lost years, the ache of separation, and the knowledge of his son weighed on him heavily. He began to make small changes, quietly helping people in need, attending events for children, subtly creating bridges with Clarina without breaking her boundaries. Yet every day, Clarina wondered, could she trust him again? Could love that had arrived too late be strong enough to survive the consequences of the past? And in the quiet of the night, as Elias slept, Clarina whispered into the darkness, "Some loves aren't meant to return, but maybe, just maybe, they are meant to teach us how to live fully, with courage and truth." The city streets were quiet that evening, the soft glow of streetlights reflecting on wet asphalt from a recent rain. Clarina stood by the window of her apartment, watching her son, Elias, play with a small wooden boat by the indoor window ledge, pretending it floated on an imaginary river. Motherhood had made her strong, careful, and fiercely protective. Every day she carried the weight of decisions she had made, the love she had chosen, and the child who depended entirely on her. And yet, even after all these years, Rowan still haunted the corners of her mind. He had tried to reach her in subtle ways, quiet gifts, messages, small gestures of care. Always respectful, never intrusive. But each time her heart ached, torn between the man she had loved and the life she had built. Rowan had changed too. Marriage had taught him lessons no wealth or social power could. He saw now that love was not about obligation or appearances. It was about presence, honesty, and shared lives. And he carried the knowledge that he had lost the one woman who had made him feel fully alive. One afternoon, fate intervened. Clarina had agreed to attend a local literary event where she was invited to speak about parenting and resilience. Elias would stay with a friend for the evening. Rowan was there too, representing his family's company. The crowd was bustling, but the moment their eyes met across the hall, all distractions faded. Time seemed to compress, leaving just the two of them, the past, the present, and all that remained unsaid. Clarina's hands trembled slightly as she walked to the podium. Her voice was steady, but her mind was elsewhere, remembering quiet mornings by the sea, stolen moments in the library, and the love they had shared, so deep yet so impossible. After her speech, as the crowd dispersed, Rowan approached cautiously. His gaze was soft, respectful, yet desperate. "Clarina," he began, voice low. "I need to speak to you, please." Clarina exhaled slowly. "Rowan, let's sit." They found a quiet corner, the noise of the event fading behind them. He spoke first, words heavy with years of regret. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I lost you. I lost the life we could have had. But I need you to understand, every day without you has been a reminder of my failure. And Elias, he deserves to know his father, not just in name, but in presence. I want to be a part of his life." Clarina felt her chest tighten. Her heart longed to forgive, but caution ruled. "Rowan, you lost that right the moment you chose duty over love. I raised Elias alone. I protected him. I created a life that is ours, without lies, without compromise. And yet, yes, he is your son. He has your eyes, your curiosity, your stubbornness. He has a part of you whether you were there or not." Rowan's voice cracked. "I will do anything to make it right. I don't want to intrude. I don't want to replace anything. But I want him to know me fully if you allow it." Clarina looked at him, measuring the honesty in his eyes. She saw a man who had learned, who had suffered, and who was willing to change. And yet she also saw the shadows of the past, the broken promises, the lost years, the silent pain she had carried. "Elias has a right to his father," she said softly. "But nothing will replace the life we built together. You have to understand that." He nodded solemnly. "I understand, and I will respect that. But please let me try. Let me be part of his world, even if it's from the edges." The days that followed were tentative, cautious. Rowan met Elias for the first time in years. The boy was curious, cautious, yet drawn to the man whose eyes mirrored his own. "Are you really my dad?" Elias asked, voice trembling slightly. "Yes, I am," Rowan said gently. "I've missed so much, but I promise I will do my best from now on." Clarina watched silently, heart heavy, but a small relief blossomed within her. Rowan was not here to disrupt, he was here to repair. Slowly, carefully, the three began to navigate their new lives together. Rowan learned patience, humility, and respect for the family he had once taken for granted. Meanwhile, Clarina continued her life with strength and dignity. She allowed herself moments of vulnerability, tears shed quietly at night, but also moments of connection, laughter, and hope. Months passed. Rowan's presence became consistent but never overbearing. He attended school events, helped with Elia's homework, and shared small joys that Clarina once thought she would face alone. And one evening, as the three of them sat by the window, watching the sun set over the city skyline, Elias asked the question Clarina had feared but anticipated. "Mom, will you and Dad ever be together again?" Clarina looked at Rowan. She saw the remorse, the sincerity, the love that had never truly faded. She also saw the life she had built, the independence she had fought for, and the boundaries that had kept her safe. "No, sweetheart," she said gently. "Your dad and I, we love each other in our own way, but some love stories are not meant to be together. They are meant to teach us how to be strong, how to forgive, and how to love wisely." Rowan nodded, his eyes misty. "I understand, and I will honor that always." Years passed. Elias grew into a thoughtful young man, aware of the complexities of love and life, learning the lessons his mother and father embodied: strength, honesty, and forgiveness. Clarina and Rowan found peace in their own ways. They did not live as a couple, but they lived as a family, fractured, perhaps, but grounded in truth. And in the quiet moments, Clarina would sometimes walk to the window and see Rowan across the city, Elias' laughter carrying across the distance. And she would smile, knowing that love, even when it cannot be possessed, can heal, nurture, and endure. The story's truth was simple, yet profound. Not every love ends in togetherness. Some love arrives late, not to claim, but to teach, to challenge, and to heal the hearts it touches.